Thank you very much. Her Excellency Ms. Agnes Chimbiri Molande, Ambassador of Malawi and Chair of the LDC Global Coordination Bureau, Ambassador Kadra Hassan of Djibouti and LDC Coordinator in the WTO, Mr. Antonio Pedro, Acting Executive Secretary of UN-ECA, Excellencies, distinguished delegates and dear colleagues, I'm delighted to be back in Africa, and it's wonderful to be in Addis Ababa. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to this regional consultations on the trade elements of the Doha Program of Action for the LDCs, which my office is very pleased to organize with WTO, ECA, and EIF. Excellencies, we are meeting at a critical time. The lives and livelihoods of people in the LDCs, especially in Africa, are being severely and disproportionately affected by multiple and overlapping crises of the COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts, especially the war in Ukraine, and the effects of climate change. And these are causing severe disruptions to international trade. Export restrictions, inflation, rising energy costs, volatility in financial markets, and disruptions in value chains and transport are exacerbating the situation. Despite the huge challenges we saw in 2020, international trade started rebounding in 2021, and that continued during the first half of 2022. The export of goods from the LDCs in 2021 amounted to 229 billion US dollars, representing a 27% increase from the previous year. And for the African LDCs, the situation was even better at 145.4 billion US dollars of exports that year. It marked a 35% increase in their exports from 2020. However, once again, global trade faces difficult headwinds. And it is imperative to have urgent and coordinated measures to tackle the situation so as to enable the LDCs to better access international trade and global value chains. Trade is a sine qua non for ensuring sustained growth and achieving the SDGs. The Doha Program of Action for the LDCs for the decade 2022 to 31 sets an ambitious agenda that can serve as an accelerator to promote LDCs trade. The program reinforces existing global commitments and sets out specific goals and targets as well as measures and initiatives. Essentially, international trade has been identified as one of the 6 priorities of the program. The least developed countries can gain significantly if the Doha Program of Action is implemented fully, including by taking full advantage of the multilateral trading system under the WTO. Distinguished colleagues, let me highlight 6 key targets and commitments from the Program of Action which are specific to enhancing trade and global competitiveness of the LDCs, and you'll hear more in detail in the subsequent presentations. First and foremost, the Doha program makes specific commitments to ensure full and expeditious implementation of the decisions of the WTO ministerial conferences pertinent to the LDCs, and these include duty-free and quota-free market access, simplified and transparent rules of origin, preferential treatment to services and service suppliers of the LDCs, and capacity building support. Secondly, the program sets an ambitious target to increase the exports of least developed countries with a view to doubling their share of global exports by 2031. This is especially important for the African LDCs. Despite having enormous resources, as we all know, Africa has only about 3% share of the global trade, and African LDCs have 0.6% of that share. Just 1% increase, and I know that there are experts around the table who will be coming back more with details. But just 1% increase in global trade share would generate about $70 billion of additional income for Africa. And this is about 3 times the total ODA that Africa receives annually. Thirdly, dear colleagues, African LDCs need massive investment for trade capacity building, including in diversification, improved value chains, enhancing technology content, and meeting necessary standards. The Doha Programme of Action sets clear and ambitious targets to increase aid for trade support to LDCs, aiming to double it by 2031. This is going to be highly critical for the African LDCs. They need enhanced capacity and competitiveness, especially to harness the untapped potentials of product and market diversifications and to ensure their upward mobility in global trade and value chains. Fourthly, the international community made a firm commitment to promote regional economic integration and enhance regional connectivity. The Doha Programme of Action also sets a target to fully implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement and to assist with capacity building of LDCs in this regard. And these measures will increase regional trade, including integration of LDCs into regional value chains and services trade. The establishment of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement will further complement these efforts to boost intra-African trade and to strengthen production and exports, create employment, and limit the impact of commodity price volatility. Fifthly, we must realize the potentials of e-commerce. Digitalization reduces many of the barriers to entry for international trade, facing the MSMEs and startups in the LDCs. During the pandemic, this sector has seen a major boom. While the developed countries could turn to digital platforms to continue business during the lockdowns, this was not an option for most businesses in the LDCs. The Doha Programme of Action makes a strong call upon the development partners to provide additional and substantial support in this area, and that includes support for building and gaining access to adequate energy infrastructure, access to internet digital infrastructure, including Wi-Fi connectivity, fintech, including mobile banking, and developing transparent and fair regulations and promoting personal data protection. And you will get to hear more about that in the subsequent presentations. Finally, Excellencies, the Doha Programme of Action calls upon the development and trading partners to continue to extend trade preferences to graduated countries. This is especially crucial now as a growing number of African LDCs are on graduation track. In the last review in 2021, out of the 5 countries that met the criteria for graduation for the first time, 4 were from Africa: Comoros, Djibouti, Senegal, and Zambia. The Doha Programme of Action recognizes the importance of maintaining support to graduating countries to ensure continued and sustainable development. And there is a strong package of support to ensure that the development gains of the graduated LDCs are not reversed. The Doha Programme of Action facilitated the launch of the Sustainable Graduation Support Facility, IGRAD, which is an important interagency support mechanism led by my office to support graduating and graduated countries. And I was just speaking to the head of UNECA about how we can collaborate further in this regard. Distinguished delegates, we have established a new partnership with the WTO to support the implementation of trade-related goals and targets for the 46 most vulnerable countries, the LDCs. And this MOU between us lays out the specific areas of support to be extended to LDCs in a collaborative manner. As part of our joint efforts, we have commissioned a study on digital trade opportunities and challenges, which has been shared with you. And the study provides important perspectives that will help LDCs on e-commerce and digital trade. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, in 6 weeks' time, we will be in Doha for the 5th UN Conference of the Least Developed Countries, with the program of action already agreed upon by the international community by consensus. It represents the strong solidarity and commitment of the international community for the LDCs, and it provides the blueprint for the LDCs to recover from the pandemic and recession and to get back on track to meet the SDGs. What is important now is to ensure that these commitments, goals, and targets are translated into real actions and progress. And that is our message to the LDC leaders and to the development partners and trading partners of the LDCs. This task, distinguished colleagues, is not going to be easy. More than ever before, the LDC group now needs to demonstrate strong political commitment, solidarity, and unity of purpose to advance the vision and commitments of the Doha Program of Action. The Program of Action is essentially a compact between the LDCs and the development partners and the international system, the UN. Its full and effective implementation will not only bring about transformative changes in the LDCs, but also help boost the global economy and fulfill our vision of achieving 2030 agenda, leaving no one behind. Distinguished colleagues, for too long, the benefits that the African LDCs and its burgeoning population can bring to the international trade and development agenda has not been fully recognized or realized. And we have a great opportunity in Doha to change this course based on our shared commitments of the Doha Program of Action. The African LDCs, which make up almost 2/3 of the LDC group, are in a very strong position to lead this agenda. And I encourage all of you, please do take this message back to your leaders, to participate in the conference at the highest political level and engage with all partners and stakeholders to mobilize their support in favor of the LDCs. And we are indeed very fortunate that leadership of the LDC group, both in the UN and in the WTO, are in the able and strong hands of 2 African countries, Djibouti and Malawi. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Hassan and Ambassador Chimbiri Molande, my dear sister and friend, for their excellent leadership in leading these 2 groups in these 2 very important fora. My office is fully committed to and shall invest every effort and resources to support your efforts to translate the goals and targets of the DPOA into concrete actions and deliverables. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I look forward to a fruitful discussion here. Your recommendations from this meeting will be an important contribution to the LDC5 conference in March. And I look forward to meeting many of you there. Let me rest it here, but thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.